We are halfway through the year now, and that means it's time to check in on my houseplant goals for 2026. If you didn't know, every year I try and set myself goals on specific houseplants in my collection that I try and reach over the course of the year, and I like to do a 6-monthly check-in just to see how we're doing on things, whether I'm doing well with it or if there's things that I need to keep working on or do I need to start over completely kind of thing. That's what this video is for, just to keep me on track a little bit, hold me accountable, because otherwise sometimes I just forget about things entirely. I know, sorry. But we're gonna go through these goals today, and I'm going to share with you the progress I have made or not on all of them. Before we get into that though, I wanna say if you're new here and you don't know me already, hi, my name is Emma and I make houseplanty content all over the internet. So if you want to follow along with my houseplanty journey and maybe learn something along the way, stick around, watch some more of my videos, and subscribe to my channel. If you are not new here, welcome back. I really appreciate you returning. Now let's get straight into this. So my first goal was to revive my begonia darthvaderiana green spot, because at the end of last year, I had just put it into this terrarium box and it dropped every single one of its leaves and was really not in a great place. 6 months in, we are doing okay with it. We are not as bad as it was 6 months ago, but it's also not amazing. I think part of that is due to the spot that I have this one in my home. I have it sitting underneath my TV. It doesn't get any grow light or anything, and I feel like that could be the main issue with it, because it's not getting anything amazing grow light wise. It stays very, very moist. It's really moist in here, and it has put out new leaves, so I am very happy with where it currently is. But I feel like I could do better with it if I put it in a brighter spot. But yeah, they just really, really don't like being messed with. The transition from getting it from the plant shop to Claire's house, from Claire's house to my house, and then into this terrarium was probably a little bit too much for it, and that's why it ended up throwing a fit. And I also find that begonias can just take ages to get going. They can just take a while, and then suddenly they'll just randomly take off. That is not unusual and not unheard of for begonias, which is kind of annoying, but I think it's also okay. I think, like I said, we're in a good place with this one, and maybe I just need to find a spot that's a little bit brighter for it, because it's good environment wise, except for light, I think. So that's something to think about going forward. I don't know where that'll be. Maybe I need to have another big rearrange, but I think that is a problem for another day, because it is still growing there. It is still surviving. So I'm not incredibly upset with how it's doing. The next goal was very, very similar, and it was to generally get better at rhizomatious begonias. They are ones that I have generally struggled with over the course of my planting journey. I've got cane begonias down pat, I think, but the rhizomatious ones I found a lot harder. And so I had a begonia sugogo that I had just gotten, I think, a couple months prior to 2026 starting, and I really, really wanted to see it succeed, and so far it is doing incredibly. Look at this plant. This leaf, the newest leaf on it, is frickin' massive. I am obsessed with it, and it's also regularly putting out new ones in there. There's a new one there. There's another new one coming in just here, if it'll focus on that. So I feel like we're in a really, really, really good place with this one. This one is living in my cabinet, and you can see it's in semi-hydro, no drainage, which I think has worked really well. I think the reason it's okay with that is because it was water propagated originally, and so the transition from water propagation to semi-hydro is not that intense of a transition, and so it transferred over fine and didn't have that initial adjustment period like the darthvaderiana did. But also, since I have put brighter grow lights in my cabinet, I think this one has picked up on its growth so much. That was only a couple months ago now, and so it hasn't been that long, but I have noticed that it is growing faster and faster now. And in general, I feel like plant growth is somewhat exponential, especially in these like rhizomatious begonias. And so the more leaves it has, the faster it's going to be able to grow, and it's just doing phenomenally. I can't believe how big and beautiful these leaves have gotten, and I am kind of just obsessed with how cool this one looks. It is so fun and like kind of gothic, and I really like it. Also, I wanted to show as well, because it wasn't just about the Sugogo, it was about rhizomatious begonias in general. I wanted to show one of my jarariums that I have here. This one has the begonia black mambo in it, and it is doing phenomenally in here. I think it is the humidity thing. It really enjoys the humidity. And this one is sitting right next to where the darthvaderiana is, and it is putting out loads and loads of new growth. It seems to be fine. I feel like I am getting the gist on these ones a little bit more. I think it is just constant access to moisture and not handling them too much. I think those are the two main takeaways that I have. Just don't handle them, and they should be okay. They don't like repotting, they don't like changing spaces. Put them in a place, leave them, and they should be okay. And so I'm really enjoying watching this one grow, and I just hope that it continues to live a long, happy life. Then we had the goal to get my pinguiculas to grow better and flower. At the end of 2025, they were looking in a bit of a state. They were not their happiest. And so I knew I needed to do something to help them out a little bit. And so fairly early on in 2026, I did do a big rehab mission where I basically entirely dismantled my pingdom and remade it with a bunch of new pings. And so far, I think it's doing pretty well. I can't tip it much more. I'll have to insert some B-roll, but I think it's doing really well in here, and it has definitely started properly growing, especially like these little tall ones here. It's just so cute. I did just water this yesterday because it was quite dry after the heat wave, so it is very moist, but I think it is in a really good place now. Unfortunately, I have had one major issue with them, and it's not a me issue, it's actually a Cosmo issue, because I do not have a good place for these to exist, getting the light they need, basically, without Cosmo being able to have access to them. And while pinguiculas are technically a pet safe plant, I don't want Cosmo eating my pings, because I want my pings to just be pings. And so I have popped this into my Millsbow cabinet, but it's kind of at the bottom. It is a very heavy bowl, and so I can't really put it on any of the higher shelves. That part is a me problem. I need to long-term find a space that works better for it, but I think in general they are doing very well. I haven't gotten these ones to flower loads. A couple of them flowered right at the beginning of me having them, but not really since. I also really want to show the revival of my pinguiculatinas, because this is a freaking miracle how different they look from the last time that I repotted them. They were in a bad way, and I kind of chucked them in this in hopes that I would be able to save them, and since then they have done so well. These are also in my Millsbow, but these are able to sit right underneath the grow light, and I think that has really helped them like do a lot better. You can see they are collecting fungus gnats in there, so they are getting fed, which is fantastic. I also tried to fertilize my pings, which I regret doing entirely. I don't think I had the right fertilizer at all, and so I just I'm probably never going to fertilize my pinks again. I'm just going to let them be because I don't need to do that. I don't need to stress about it. I can just let them be. So I am just waiting for this one to flower again. It hasn't flowered in a while. The pinguiculas was one that flowered loads for me last year, so I'm hoping that it'll flower again soon. Fingers crossed. We will see how it goes. And then we had the goal about my nemesis plant, the spider plant, and my goal was actually challenged to me by Willow, the maker of the smart plant sensors I use, who have very kindly sponsored this video. They challenged me to actually keep a spider plant alive by listening to the Willow plant sensors, and holy frickin' cow, y'all, I've been able to keep this one alive. I am so freaking proud of that. I have, like I said, never been able to keep one alive in the past. I have killed every single other spider plant I have ever had, except for this one. And I think it is entirely down to the Willow Smart Plant Sensor. Since having it in, I've essentially learned that spider plants are way thirstier than I knew about. I've always heard of them as a really low maintenance, neglect tolerant plant, and I don't think that is the case for me at all in my collection. In general, I am a chronic underwaterer, and I think for my previous spider plants that has been the issue. The Willow plant sensor sends me notifications whenever this thing needs more water, and it was way more frequently than I ever would have guessed, and it takes like a lot more actual water than I would have been putting in it otherwise as well. It is a fairly large plant. You can see in here, it's in a pretty big pot, but it took way more water than I thought it would, because the sensors will also tell you if your pour wasn't generous enough. Like if it was thirsty and you just gave it like a little dribble, it'll say like, thanks for the drink, but next time give me more, which I think is brilliant. And it really helped me learn like the amount at which this one needed water. It's also been really helping me with light. I currently have it in my bedroom underneath a Plant Spectrum 16 grow light, which is on for 12 hours a day, and it seems to be really, really liking that. You can also see it's growing hella babies in here. It's been a minute since I've cut them off. I do need to remove them because I'm gonna be honest, I'm not trying to grow baby spider plants in my home. I don't have the time or space for that. So I have just been removing the stems of those entirely, and it's been fine. I just kind of wanted to show you the extent at which it was putting out those babies, because I feel like it is doing really, really well. I think it's also time for a repot on this one. So we're in a really good place, and I really have to thank Willow for making that happen in here. If you want to try Willow for yourself, I highly recommend it. You can use my discount link down below in the description to get yours today for 10% off, and you can give it a go for yourself. Maybe you can challenge yourself to try your nemesis plant again with the Willow plant sensor, and maybe this time you'll be able to actually keep it alive. Then there was a plant that I had never really heard of before the end of 2025 that I added to my collection. It was the Ardisia gigantifolia, and I really wanted to learn how to take care of it properly and keep it happy. So far, I think I'm doing a pretty good job. So the main things I've learned is that it likes quite high humidity, like 60 to 80% ideally, and so I've been keeping it in my Millsbo cabinet. I've also found that it was thirstier than a lot of my other tropical plants, and so I decided to pop it into semi-hydro substrate, and so far I think that has been really, really good for it, because when it was in soil, it was basically dropping leaves quite regularly, and that's why I don't have as many leaves down there as I do at the top. But since the transition, since it's like acclimated to being in semi-hydro now, it has put out the biggest, most beautiful leaves that I've ever seen on this plant. They are way, way bigger than the leaves it was giving me before the transition, and so I feel like it is in a much better place now. That also somewhat coincided with me adding more grow light to the cabinet, and so now it's getting the same number of hours of grow light as before, but the light quality is better, it is stronger, and so I think that is helping quite a lot. So I think we're in a really good place with this. I am kind of tempted to chop this back a little bit and see if I can get it to branch out from lower down, because it is looking a little bit funky in here, but at the same time, I don't want to lose this beautiful big growth. So I think I'm just going to wait with it and hope that in another 6 months time, it is looking even better and it hasn't grown out of the cabinet, because I don't know where I'm gonna put it if it grows out of the cabinet. That is a problem for another day. Right now it fits in there just fine, but we will see what happens then, because I do think it really kind of needs that high humidity zone and high light as well. Not like high light, not like euphorbia ficus sort of light, but like bright indirect light for many, many hours in the day. So I'm very happy with where this one is, and I feel like I have learned very well how to take care of it so far. Goal number 6 was to size up my anthurium regale, who had gone through an absolute trauma in 2025 when I chopped it back and started growing it again from the bottom and the top cut. And at the beginning of this year, I hadn't yet joined the 2 pieces together. I had the bottom and the top separate. A couple months ago, I decided to finally pop them in together again into this giant bucket of no drainage, which is extremely heavy. I also just watered it yesterday, and now I'm regretting that because holding this up is freaking hard. But I popped them both into the one, and I think that they're doing quite well. It looks like they are going into cataphyll, both of them, at the minute, which is super exciting. I feel like that means we're in a good place with it. They haven't done much, let's be honest, since the beginning of the year. I think this is the only new leaf that I have received before this, and so they are taking their sweet time. I am just looking forward to hopefully getting rid of this BS. This is all happening because of watering issues when the new leaves are coming in. Like, look at that. I think this one really came from when the heat wave was on and it dried out a little bit too much. My anthurium regale hates to be too dry, and this one is thirsty AF. And so if I can avoid these next couple leaves coming in with the brown spots or developing the brown spots, that would be my ideal. I really want to get back to the point where it's growing really big, beautiful leaves. But unlike before when they were growing in like deformed and with spots, I want big, beautiful, perfect leaves. That's what I am trying to get with this one, and I can only hope that these next leaves that come in like succeed. Like I said, I have just given it water, so I think it should be okay. I just need to keep an eye on the water levels, especially since it's been so hot here in the UK and water evaporates out of these no drainage vessels in addition to being sucked up by the plant. So as long as I can keep an eye on the watering levels, it should be fine. My next goal was to see how big I could get my variegated Hoya polyneura over 2026. At the beginning of the year, it did only have 4 leaves on it, and now it's doing really friggin' well. However, I will say that a chunk of this is from a second plant that someone gave to me, or I swapped for, and was able to add into this, so it is slightly fuller because of that. But I think my OG plant, I think, was this piece here. And so the original leaves that you saw were these 2 at the bottom, and then these 2 had just grown in, I think. And so since then, I have got 4 more leaves, the newest ones on the way at the minute, on that specific piece, which is really, really good. I also think it is in too bright a spot. This one is living in my Mills bow at the minute. Like so many other things in this video, I didn't realize quite how many plants I had in my Mills bow in this video. But I think that the light is kind of too bright for it in that space. In general, I like to keep my Hoya polyneura in a darker spot, so my other one is actually back there-ish. And you can see how dark it is. It's not very bright. And so for this one to be under 15 hours of grow light a day, and that grow light getting even brighter a couple months back when I did my Mills bow makeover, I think it's getting a little bit too much. You can see how the leaves are just a little bit bleached in there. And so I am tempted to move this out of the cabinet. And so I think that is going to be the biggest change I make on it in 2026, it feels a little bit scary because I really, really care about this one. They're still not the easiest to come by, but I don't know, I think it should be okay, and potentially, I don't know if the leaves will get unbleached if I leave it out, but maybe the new ones will come in a little bit darker. So maybe I will bring it into the bedroom here. I have a few different places I could put it that are underneath grow light, but not quite as close, and so it wouldn't be getting these sort of high levels that I'd be getting in the Millsbow cabinet. So I think we're in a really good place with it. It's got great roots in here, and I'm just really excited to keep seeing how this one continues on, because so far it's doing pretty well. And then I wanted to make sure that my variegated Musa Florida was staying happy, and so far, so good. It doesn't look like a crazy change from the beginning of the year. I mean, it's definitely a whole heck of a lot taller. At the beginning of the year, it was in my Millsbow cabinet, and it grew out of that, unfortunately, and so I needed to move it out into the rest of my house. I don't think it liked that transition very much, especially because I put it then under a really, really bright grow light for many hours a day, and so it got a massive case of sunburn right off the bat and was super unhappy for a little while. It has since adjusted to the light levels that it's getting now, and I think it is doing better. It is a little bit bigger, but also I like the variegation on it a little bit better now. The previous variegation it was giving me in the IKEA cabinet was sort of like not very white. It was a little bit piecey. It kind of wasn't giving me the vibes that I know the variegated Musa can give. But look at this leaf now. It looks so much better, and like the variegation it's getting is a whole heck of a lot nicer, and it's actually getting full white spots. Same on this leaf here. And so I feel like it is growing better, even if it is not getting that much bigger yet. I have a feeling that this one is going to absolutely boom in the rest of this year, because we have just been getting really, really hot weather lately, and this one loves that sort of heat. I also think it is probably time to repot it, because the roots in this thing have kind of just gone a bit crazy. I think it could just probably use a little bit more space in there. And so if I repot it into a bigger vessel and it keeps enjoying the heat that we're getting, I have so much faith in this one. So that's going to be a project for fairly soon, and we can hopefully get this one to grow a little bit bigger by the end of 2026. Sizing up my philodendron ilsemanii was my next goal. At the beginning of the year, it did only have 2 new leaves that grew in my care, and they were quite small. But since then, it's grown a little bit awkwardly, but it has grown really freaking well, and it's actually sized up to fairly similar to what it was in the beginning. So this was the leaf that I got it with, and some of the leaves that it has been putting out since then have rivaled that in size, which is brilliant. The only downside is that this thing grows really freaking fast. I've had to move it out of my Millsbow cabinet. I've moved it in and out of my cabinet since the beginning of the year because it just grew so fast in there. It's grown up this pole so fast. I need to put an extension on it ASAP because it's like rooting, but it has nothing to root into. And I think that has caused the newest leaf to, one, size down a little bit, unfortunately, but also come in completely green. Bro, I know ilsemanii variegation is stable. I know it is. I know I can probably just cut it back or just keep going with it, put a pole extension in, and I think the variegation should come back. Like, it was just getting so light bleached in the Millsbow, and that's why I took it out of there. But it is doing really well for me. I'm surprised at how easy this one has been. It's been pretty freaking chill. It's just been growing in the moss very steadily. It's been rooting into the pole really nicely. So we're on track with this one. I just need to give it an extension. I've just been putting that off because I'm a little bit of a procrastinator, okay? I know that is a true fact about myself. So hopefully once we get this on a new pole, it'll give me bigger leaves again, as well as some variegation again. That's where my new goals ended, but there were 3 plants that I wanted to continue to keep an eye on from my previous year's goals that I think will continue being goals of mine until they happen. But the first one was to size up my philodendron majestic. It had just started getting decent sized leaves on it at the end of 2025, and so I wanted to carry on with that in 2026. And honestly, I think we are in a pretty decent spot with it. Like, this leaf here is big and beautiful and doing so well. I have been much more on top of this moss pole than I have been in years past, and I think that is massively helping. So I feel like we are in a good spot with this one. We're just gonna continue keeping an eye on it, and hopefully it will keep just getting bigger and bigger, because what's not to love about that? Returning goal number 2 is to get my Hoya Crimson Princess to bloom. This has been on my goals list for several years now because I just really want this specific Hoya of mine to bloom. It was my first ever Hoya. I grew it from props. It would kind of be a full circle moment. And so far, no dice, unfortunately. However, I have noticed since I moved it out of the southwest facing window onto my plant shelves and under a Plant Spectrum 16 grow light, it has been doing a whole heck of a lot better. It has been putting out much more new growth for me, which I think is a good sign. I haven't noticed any peduncles on here yet, unfortunately, but like I said, I feel like we're in an okay place with it. Crimson Princess and Carnosa in general are notoriously hard to get to bloom, so it's a little bit unfortunate, but I still have high hopes for this. The summer is not over yet. I still think it might happen. One thing that is kind of exciting is it has put out this like cool entirely albo section on the Crimson Queen that's also in this pot. Like, look, the stem is even fully white. What the heck? I think that's actually really freaking cool, and I'm enjoying watching that bit grow. I'm excited to see if it continues living. I think because the rest of that like actual plant, the bit that it's grown off of, has chlorophyll, it might be able to actually sustain itself. So fingers crossed on that. I will keep y'all updated. Y'all will be the first to know if this thing blooms, because I will be literally screaming it from the rooftops because I'll be so excited about it. But for now, we just have to continue to wait patiently. And then my last long-term goal is to get my Cebu blue to fenestrate. Again, this is one that's been on my list for years, and I've had this Cebu blue on a moss pole for years. And yes, I haven't treated my moss poles amazingly the entire time I've had them, and so that's why I don't think this one has gotten itself to fenestration point. This is the goal that I think I have done the worst on, unfortunately. I'm really mad at myself for this one. Basically, at the beginning of the year, my Cebu blue was looking so full and fresh and lush, and I let it get way too dry, and basically the entire thing just like kept dropping and dropping and dropping leaves, and I basically had to like SOS. This is a problem, try and rescue this one. Fortunately, I was able to save the top bit with 2 vines on it, and the vines do have pretty decent sized leaves. They're not small by any means, so I think that's good. But it's not looking as lush as it was at the beginning of the year, which is sad. I do also have some cuttings from, I think this one, as well as my trailing one that I have up there, that I'm planning to put into the bottom of this. And I think adding more in again will help. But so far, at the very least, the plants that I have on here now are doing really well, staying healthy, and I'm also being so much better about keeping my moss poles moist. I've been like really focusing on that this year. I know I say that all the time, but like I never actually do it. But I'm trying to, like, every 2 or 3 days get these things hydrated again and make sure that they're not drying out completely, especially with this one, because I don't want to lose this. This is cuttings from my first ever Cebu blue that I paid like 15 quid for like a 2-leaf cutting for back in probably like 2020, which is kind of mental if you think about it because they're so cheap now. But I have such sentimental feelings about this one. This is also the first plant I ever put on a moss pole, and so I really want this one to stay happy. But I mucked it up. I mucked this one up, and hopefully carrying on this year I won't muck it up again, and so I'm trying to keep a much better eye on it than I was at the beginning half of this year. So there we go. That's how I'm doing on all of my 2026 plant goals. I think I'm doing pretty well on a lot of them. So far, I feel like a lot of them are progressing and I'm in a good place. Obviously, there's some ups and downs, bumps along the road. No plant journey is perfect, and so we're handling those hurdles as best we can. But I have a good feeling that in the next 6 months, they're going to just continue to do really well, and I'm going to stay on top of them. Just manifesting this. I'm going to stay on top of them, and they're going to keep growing fantastically. Before I sign off here, I want to say a huge thank you to Kayla for joining my Good Growing Fam over on Patreon. If anyone else is interested in checking that out, the lowest tier is £3 a month, and for that you get the bulk of everything, including access to my Discord server, live chats, bonus content. Like, I put out exclusive Patreon videos each month, and it's just generally a really fun time. The link for that is down below in the description if you're interested. If you're not, that's totally okay as well. I like you guys either way. So thank you so much, Kayla, for joining in. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up down below and leave a comment on other houseplanty things you'd like me to talk about in the future, or if you have any tips for any of these things that I didn't mention or I'm not doing, let me know as well, because advice is appreciated. And also subscribe for more. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to keep growing. Bye!